Riders! Long time no see, and I am popping live to ask you if you are, or rather, your mare is expecting a foal this summer. Then please let me know in the comments below because I have prepared a little live session for you about foaling because I've been digging deep into the literature of foaling, and I also have quite a bit of experience, both from my time in Iceland, but also as a horse breeder. So if you're expecting a foal, tune in so that you know what to do when the foal arrives and also know what not to do. Because as I've been studying this, there's actually quite a few mares who are rejecting their foals. And I haven't found necessarily any kind of research on why they are rejecting the foals, other than these mares have some kind of a hormone imbalance. They lack oxytocin. But what I think is the main reason mares are rejecting foals, and this is something that apparently is kind of becoming more and more common. I think it is because of human interference. And I think it's especially like right after birth, when the foal is born, it's lying there, it's wet. And that's when, the mom is supposed to lick the foal clean. But if we then, as humans, come with towels and rugs and whatnot and start interfering with this process and start drying up the foal, we put smell on the foal, which then may cause the mare to reject the mother. Or if we start, helping the foal to stand and start, trying to maneuver the foal to the tits, and if we do too much, we actually risk interfering with the bonding process between the mare and the foal, which, will cause the mare to reject the foal, or it can cause the mare to, like the foal to actually attach to us and not their mom. So that's at least my kind of, idea and common sense. And not necessarily from handling foals, but from handling lambs. Because I know if there's a newborn lamb somewhere and I have to kind of move it and get the mom, to follow the lamb somewhere, outside the herd, I always use gloves. And if I don't have gloves, I take like a bunch of straw and I lift the lamb with that, so that I'm not putting any smell from like soap or perfumes or my hand cream or whatever onto the lamb. Because at least our sheep, they can reject their lambs if we are, fiddling with the lambs, yeah, and put our smell on the lamb. Just as if we want Eve to adopt a lamb, we can try to rub the smell of her other lamb onto the lamb we want her to adopt, so that she might think it's hers, right? Yes. So if you're expecting a foal, don't bring towels, don't bring any rugs. But what can come in handy is actually to bring a knife and a bucket of cold water. And I'm going to explain why. And the knife is because I've studied this now, and there's something called red bag delivery. If any of you heard of this, please let me know. I've not heard of it, I've never seen it, but it is actually the placenta detaching and coming out before the foal. So if there's a red bag delivery and you are witnessing a mare delivering a foal, and the bag that comes out isn't white but is red, you actually need to cut it open and get the foal as quickly as you can out of the mare to be able to save its life. Yes, so that's why you need a knife. And if for some reason, the foal is born and it isn't breathing, it can be kind of, it can be various reasons for it not breathing. You can try with a bucket of cold water and splash it in the foal's face so that the foal might kind of wake up. I've at least done this with lambs and it has been very successful in like starting them up again, especially if the lamb is delivered backwards, because then the navel cord will break before the lamb is out of the eave. And I suspect the same can happen with these foals. But anyhow, I found various things that can go wrong. But in my experience from living in Iceland and working for horse farmers who have like hundreds of horses and 15 sheep, was never any problem with the foalings. You know, the foalings wasn't any big deal at all. The foals just appeared together with their moms. But with the lamps and the eaves, it was much more complications than with the horses giving birth. And also during my time here at the farm, we have had several mares foaling, both our own mares and also mares for others. And I think at one time there was a delay of the placenta coming out of the mare, which actually got sorted before the veterinarian even arrived, because I led the mare uphill because she was kind of falling down, you know, by the river. So I went to check on her, and it was been like more than 3 hours since she had been giving birth, and the placenta had not arrived. So I was like, okay, let's call the vet, because then you need to call the vet very fast so that the vet is able to take the placenta out before the mare closes. Anyhow, I was calling the vet, and the vet was arriving, and I was leading the mare uphill. And in the middle of the hill, the placenta came out and it was whole, and the mare was fine. So that can be a little trick for you there. If you suspect the placenta to, you know, not have come out, lead your mare uphill, and maybe that's enough to make sure everything is fine. But I think if we don't have to, I don't interfere. That's my biggest tip, because I am suspecting that this huge amount of mares rejecting their foals is probably because of human interference and the mare not being allowed to lick the foal dry, do stuff that she needs to do to get her hormones going. So don't do too much. But if something is wrong, then I have made a blog for you where I sum up like the 3 main things that can go wrong that you can actually do something about. And I have also made a little video of something that went kind of partly wrong when a mare that we had here for an owner delivered her foal, and the trotter and Curly, they weren't necessarily trying to steal the foal, but they were very, very curious about what was going on. So they really wanted to go close to the foal. So I had my hands full there, fending them off and trying to take the guard for the foal and the mother. And you can see how it all went, because this is probably one of the closest times I've been to foaling. It happens fast, and since we have horses in the herd, they usually withdraw from the herd, disappear, and kind of come back with a foal. And there are also some really neat tips in the video on how you can predict the foaling, which is not easy, but there are some clues. Yes. But none of these clues are like 100% truth, and mares can be pregnant for like 11 months, give or take 2 weeks. So they have kind of a quite long gestation time, which can make it difficult to predict the foaling. But there are some tips there as well that you can follow, so that, at least in my experience, these tips, you will be pretty sure that in the next 24 hours there's going to come a foal, which makes it a bit easier. Yes. so you don't spend the whole month waiting for a foal and missing the whole thing. Yes, which also often happens. It appears, at least in my experience, mares, they will like to be alone when they're foaling. And I've also heard people who had like video surveillance of their mares foaling, and very often when they then come into the stable to look, the mares kind of stop the foaling process and wait until people are have left again, until they then start the process again. So they tend to be want to be away from the herd. Yes. And yeah, you can find the blog on ridelikeviking.com/post/foaling, or you can just go to ridelikeviking.com/blog and you will find a blog there that's called Foaling 101. Yeah, so it's a video there showing how it went when this foal was delivered, and what we did to make sure the mare didn't reject her foal. And there's also quite a few tips there on how you can predict the foaling and what you can do if things go wrong. Yes. So let me know in the comments if you are expecting a foal, and if you're going to check it out, then warm welcome. And thank you so much for joining this evening. I think this is it. I'm usually talking about horse training. And like in my experience, in my opinion, I don't think we are supposed to like train foals. It's good to teach them how to, be able to catch and put the halter on and lead and lift their feet and give them dewormer. But other than that, I don't think we should teach them stuff. The herd teaches the foals everything they need to know to become horses who are easily trained by humans. But what I found, like the most difficult cases I've gotten to retrain, are horses who are brought up by humans, who like are very difficult to move, who don't have any boundaries, and who aren't really like horses anymore. They have become like something else, like their flight instinct and their horsiness is kind of gone. And that makes them often a huge problem for their owner. And that's why they end up at my place. And I have to be really loud to get them to move and teach them to be a horse again, which is totally unnecessary. Horses are very good at training horses, actually. So this is kind of part of a unit in Ride Like Viking members who's called herd management and foal handling. And I basically don't do more handling with the foals than what's necessary to just keep them being horses, because then they become very easy to train. Yeah, so if you want a full-fledged foal training program, then you have to go somewhere else. Yeah, but I do teach how to put the halter on and stuff like that in a way that makes things easy and doesn't traumatize the foals. Yeah, but if they know how to tie and how halter and trim their feet and get the dewormer, they don't really need to know anything more for the next few years until we start training. And yeah, I've seen lots of strange stuff going on with foals, like this halter thing that people put on their bodies, and they're like leading them around as if they were sled dogs. I'm like, this is probably not a good idea, because it teaches the foals to, go against pressure. So although you are able to kind of manhandle the foal with this, whatever it's called, I don't know, breast halter or something, chest halter, this foal hasn't really learned how to move off of pressure and follow the slack. So it's nothing wrong with using just a regular lead rope and halter when leading a foal. And I have videos showing how to go about that. But it's not advisable to have the foal running ahead of you, and you are kind of hanging on some kind of breast strap there, and like you're basically just teaching the whole foal to become stronger and to become like a mushing sled dog. Yeah. So you don't need any extra stuff, and it's a beautiful thing to watch them grow up and just see them interact with the herd. And by doing so, we're going to learn so much about horses and how they interact. Yes, and definitely no whatsoever desensitizing and training of newborn foals. I've had like many foals, and it has never ever been necessary to lie them on the ground and rub all over them and put my fingers in their mouth and their ears and everywhere. It's not necessary at all, and I think we risk again interfering with the very precious moments after birth where the mother and the foal should be connecting. And we might even risk making the horse learn helplessness, which is not something we want to teach them. So it's basically, I don't know where this comes from, but um, yeah, it's not necessary, and you don't need to do it. And yeah, I think it can do more harm than good. But let me know in the comments below if you think this. It's called imprinting. Yeah, if you think imprinting is a good idea and if you have tried it. I don't think it's a good idea, and I have never tried it, and it has not been necessary at all. Yeah, and I think maybe also this imprinting practice, maybe that's why now more and more mares are starting to reject their foals, because people are imprinting their foals instead of allowing the mare and the foal to enjoy the first time together and bond properly like they are supposed to do. Okay, there's a time for training, and there's a time for just stepping back and just be grateful that you even get to participate by watching and taking the guard, because falling happens so fast, and it's a gift to be able to even witness it. So I hope everything goes well for you and your fall, and it usually does. But check out the blog and be prepared. You find it on ridelikeaviking.com/blog. And thank you again so much for joining this evening, and have a great summer. Yes, in this part of the world. And if you are in New Zealand or Australia, you are probably heading towards fall, and the falling season is behind you, but we have it ahead of us. Okay, thank you so much for joining, and see you next time. Bye for now.